in the art world.
Hello, we are
Exterminate.
live.
Oh,
Welcome to the
exterminate.
173 episode of DevKami, and I have Tristan half coward. Okay,
Really? Oh yeah, because of the
yeah,
lower third.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And
And
I'm
I'm
swimming. I'm
Chile.
not a Dalek.
And I am Paris Squid Tristan, which is half covered but not anymore.
Paris squid.
Yeah.
Is that a semi squid or
Yeah, it's you know what a paratrooper or parabola. It's like not
Okay.
the usual or beyond the
Yep.
not the
normal.
usual?
It's,
Not the
that's
usual
actually
squid.
So
the subtitle of the of my blog, like not your
okay.
usual crustacean.
Okay.
Oh, wait, is it crustacean? I forgot. So cephalopod. Sorry, cephalopod.
Yeah.
Not
Yes.
your usual cephalopod.
Okay. Let's start with event. We have tech up. That's a usual thing done by who again? Uh, IO Foundation. So check it out for detail. They always post it on our event. Then nothing else happened. That being said, our Muharram is next Tuesday, and I for one have took an annual leave on Monday.
What's
Proud
happening
of it.
Monday?
Monday is a work day, but Tuesday is a public holiday.
Is it?
Yes,
How come I didn't know that?
Tuesday is a Malaysian public holiday,
correct.
so
So which is
we have
celebrating
something
the
else.
day where the Prophet Muhammad get his
It's
inspiration.
it's
So
Easter
yeah,
Sunday as well. Right.
yes. So which is why not just the Muslim are fasting, right. It's Lent, right? Right. Did I
Then
wrong?
it's not fasting.
I do not know. Okay, you know what?
It's
This is why I'm not
usually
in.
not.
This is why I'm in computer science, not theology. Okay. That being said, let's come. Let's go to the news because I have shit I want to talk about.
Oh, people fast during Lent. Okay, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, well, depends on your constitution.
Yeah.
It's
Some.
optional. You're encouraged to abstain from eating meat, but again, depends on your constitution.
Yep.
So, but the thing is, it's just to remind you of not to rely too much on worldly things.
Yep. But one of the side story is this is why beaver are considered as fish, and you can eat in some denomination they're allowed to eat fish, and beaver live in water, so they are fish. That's why you can eat
we,
beaver.
we we talk about we talk a bit. I'm not sure if swimming can cover is that a bit on the behavioral economics that human are not necessarily logical,
Yeah, I hope I can,
and the
but it's not in the
and
news.
we find way to
Unfortunately, it's not
cheat.
in the news.
Well,
Okay,
not
Yes.
not
that's
logical, rational. I think rational
yeah.
Yeah,
is the
correct.
word there.
Let's start with this. This is very cool because, as it turns out, PostgreSQL do not always use an index. So even index, you will see that some query will return sequential scan. Which reminds you actually this reminds me that I need to show a demo of PG stat statements and other analysis tools later. So either way, so this is a cool article because they also look at the source code of PostgreSQL, and to this from there, the author reverse engineer the reason why the query planner do not always use indexes in a PostgreSQL query. So yeah, it's very detailed. So what do you think? Cool or cool? Too far?
Cool.
Too
Well,
big?
does that is that cross compatible with queries in, let's say, MS SQL or MySQL
No,
or Oracle?
because the source code they refer to is purely PostgreSQL.
It's the I think it's the implementation details, right?
Correct. It
Yeah, but
also have that.
but is the solution for making Postgres use an index applicable to Oracle or MySQL?
I don't know. I do not know, to be honest, because I do not have a chance to work with that as well. So I do not know if those things 100% can be brought over. In theory, yes. In practice, I do not know.
Because SQL is supposed to be the unifying factor for all these things, right? Like if you do
Well,
such select, then everyone should implement select like should return the same things, right?
Well,
Because
actually, there's
that
this
needs a
old
query
joke.
language.
There's an old joke. Uh, SQL is actually the Holy Roman Empire of the programming world. It's not standard. It's not just a query language, and it's not really purely a language, right? So the first part, not really a standard part, shows that each of the databases have a different implementation standard. So even though SQL is the same, the implementation and beyond the thing that we're familiar with are not always is. So yeah, and this is how I kill a joke. But that the joke exists for this particular reason. Uh, Different vendor have different implementation. So in theory, yes. In practice, you have to test it out yourself. So yeah. So yes, actually, I would be concerned about how database work nowadays because the way ORM generate query, most of 90% of the time it works until the 10% of the time you find something weird that you need to think about it.
But
But
these
sometimes
days the code they generate are much better lah. I would say.
correct, it works. Which I say it used to be like I would say 80%, now it's 90+%.
I
And among the
remember like
10%, most of the time
yeah,
we do stupid shit.
I used to see some silly code generated by OM like count is actually they select all they
Yes,
do a select count and select all inside. It's
yes,
technically the database will optimize that for you, but the syntax generator were pretty silly back then.
correct.
But these days,
So
based on the ones that I use, they I'm surprised they how some of the code generated are.
correct. So nowadays your computer are fast enough most of the time, and the system are smart enough, computer fast enough, as in have more resource. You don't worry too much. That being said, when you do, then you're just glad that you know your SQL lah.
Yep.
I'm going to move on. So this one is This is actually a self-hosted media manager. I thought we shared that.
For your archive media.
I do not want to know where you get it. That let's say you have some independent film.
Oh.
You have some independent film that DRM free that you are allowed to keep. Yes, this is the reason to have this, right? Let's say you are like me want to do video. I can have this. There is a lot of reason to have this for legal
Or for
reason.
example, you just want to watch reruns of DevKami on the plane,
Yeah.
and so you want to do this
Actually,
on your
another legal
laptop.
reason is I suspect this may work for DVD. If that's the case, then yeah, you have something, right?
Yeah, but DVD is 480.
Yeah,
480p.
that too. Yeah. So either way, just something exists. Next one. La la la. So this is again.
There's a
This is
typo. We
yes.
lost too.
So
yeah. So what happened?
one of the creator of BSD, 386 BSD, passed away. So okay, now before Linux exists, here's a very long story. Before Linux exists, there is actually I would say a rush. I would say go to create a Unix operating system for the desktop. Okay, for the desktop. There is various organization and group. Unfortunately, some of the BSD have problem legally because the vendor do not allows it for reason that I never understand. And the GNU Foundation, as a result, they do not rely on BSD and attempt to create their own Unix compatible kernel. As a result, there's a rush.
Which is not Linux.
Yeah, it's just that much later, Linus Torvald on his own created Linux, right? The kernel, and things started. Then Unix on desktop get booted from there. It's only a bit later where BSD actually on the desktop. I do not know the reason, but Linux
What do
in
you
a way
mean? Apple
started
has
first.
been using BSD on the desktop for a long time.
I'm talking about in the 90s, early 90s,
Yeah,
in the
very
90s.
early.
Wasn't Mac OS ESD?
No,
On only the new one is the
yeah,
Mac OS
correct,
X, and
correct,
there was a candidate as well,
correct.
which was BOS lah, that what they call the Mac OS could be lah.
Yep,
Yeah.
correct. So it's introduced in 1992 on this song. So yeah, then there's lawsuits. So it get complicated a bit. So either way, the author of the system, the author of the system, Bill, okay, Bill. Oh my goodness, I'm so horrible. My bad. I need William Jolitz and Lynn Jolitz. So both of them, one of William are the one that passed away, and yeah, and they are the one that created 386 BSD system and one of the earliest BSD operating system on the desktop, TLDR. So rest in peace. But yeah, interesting story. Actually, Unix it always been very interesting for various reasons. Let's move on a bit. This NVIDIA open source Linux kernel driver, open source drivers, but here's a catch: it's only for Tegra. So
Which
what
which
Tegra covers what
line?
again?
Which number? Yeah, which one? Which number is Tegra?
Let me find out. Let me find out. I know it's for Tegra, but I don't remember. I don't remember it. God damn it. Tegra GPU. Okay.
But
So
it's
this
The
like it's
only
not
is
Tegra
consumer.
device I know
Yeah, it's not even
are
consumer.
the
yeah, it's
Switch,
not.
the Nintendo Switch, and the
It's embedded
and,
lah.
and the NVIDIA home
Yeah.
theater machine, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
these
yeah,
all
it's not
the
for retail. Sorry,
SoCs
it's
lah.
not for retail.
Correct. So yeah, interesting why, but yeah. So I'm gonna move on. We just know that it exists. We do not know. We do not know whether they will expand it. But we just know that they have the capability and
So
they can do it
does
even
it
on
mean
Pro.
they can have certain product or something
Uh,
that Tegra that's like IoT like or some computing boards?
The Jetson, like it's mentioned here, the Jetson,
Jetsons
the
very
small
likely.
computer,
Yeah,
that one has a Tegra.
correct. So yeah, everybody hope, but I doubt it. I really doubt it. They will release more drivers that will make it easy for
Well,
Linux.
technically the driver
to-
was released
Yeah,
illegally.
correct. Yeah, correct. So yeah, one day. I'm going to move on quickly as well. Cython is 20 years old. Cython is actually a way for you to integrate C with Python programming language. And the
It's
reason
not
for that is
C
so that,
Python.
no, it's a way for you to write a binding, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah, a
it's
way
not
to write
C
binding.
Python, it's Python.
It's Cython, correct.
Yeah.
And Cython, and this is the reason, this is one of the reason why one reason why a lot of the data science libraries are able to be reasonably fast. Cython are the reason for it. Because before Cython, the way you write a module is to use Swig. Swig is to generate C wrappers with the Python headers so that you can write Python modules in C, C++, right? Cython would actually compile codes and make it write C compiler. So it will make it easy for you to make your code faster in C language. So yeah, it's actually very cool. And I didn't realize it's 20 years already. But yeah. Any comment? If not, I'm going to move on.
No, not really.
Nginx LDAP security problem. Is the patch out? Do you know?
I have no idea.
No,
I didn't
but
follow
it's
up
not the
after I
first.
see, oh, it's LDAP. I don't use LDAP.
Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah. So the thing is,
it's not for most of Nginx. It's only for this particular
correct.
implementation.
So most of us won't face it, but when Yeah, it was on phase because among our circle, not many of us have to implement
Well,
LDAP in
even
our
though, like,
organization.
usually if you have LDAP, you usually have an LDAP server, not bake it
Correct.
into Nginx. So I mean,
Yes.
you can have it if you really just want like a single Nginx solution, but usually
Correct.
Nginx nowadays is used as a proxy for, like, it's a web proxy, and the actual servers sit behind uh,
Correct.
Nginx as a proxy. So
Correct. So yeah, I'm going to go to the next one. Git vulnerability announced, but this mostly affect Windows. Because on Windows you can actually, well, they make it easy for you to remove Git, right? La la la.
You
It's
know, oh,
the
you
patch is
this is a very serious one because it allows you to operate
uninstalled.
outside of your home directory,
Yeah,
the
correct.
directory where you don't have access.
Yes. So it's bad, but the patch is out, and it affect on Windows mostly for
Please
now.
patch.
Yes, patch your computer anyway, just to be safe. Oh, actually, it works on other as well. It works for other OS, but it discovered on Windows. Yeah,
This is
the one
a
will affect Windows installer. It runs on the system directory, blah, blah, blah. Yeah,
it's a
and it
very bad
allows code
one.
to run. Yeah, it's a bad one. So next one is Atlassian. Had a big outage for few, okay, reasonably few customer, but it's a big one. Serious data loss and all that. I think they're recovering soon, but uh, yeah, I think it's still ongoing, but I do not know what happened next.
You know, but
So
you know what caused it, right?
what caused it again?
They push. It's actually a configuration. An update configuration went wrong.
what happened to swimming?
I'm
Yeah,
thirsty.
update configuration went wrong.
Yeah,
Mm.
so they deleted the wrong thing. So
Yeah,
this is
did
why
the wrong
a
thing.
backup is important. Backup is important.
Also, like
Uh,
don't trust your code much. I don't know.
yes.
It's not
And
something. It's not something that it's in a way it's not something that we should laugh about. So
correct. So for you people, just remember that always backup, but don't forget to restore. Don't forget to test your restore, and it will be relevant soon after I show you something after this. So yeah, it's a big one, and if you're on Atlassian and you're hit it, I'm so sorry. So yeah, this one. Just a list of AWS security tools because it's something that I had to do recently. Because AWS security tools is complicated as hell. I'm sorry to say it's complicated as hell, and the way we build things everywhere and all that. Not my organization, but the way AWS encourage things like throw your spin up servers and all that. So you it they have their own complication. So, and there's a reason for that, to be honest. The reason is, okay, for some good reason, I have to look at the AWS Foundational Technical Review. Reason, I will not tell the reason because it's for work. I can only say it's for work. Um, so one of the things that require us to do is do our review of infrastructures and all that. And one of the framework it's not a full framework. Within it, they actually take a few part of a framework called the AWS Well Architected, right? The name is called Well Architected, which in my opinion is a horrible name, but so yeah. So do you want me to explain what is this, or I should explain it anyway, right? Yeah. So Well
Maybe just a
Architected.
quick one.
No, actually, the whole show will be about this. I'm bitching about
Mm.
this the whole
Okay.
way,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually what AWS suggests as a best practices to run your cloud infrastructures. Okay, cloud infrastructures. You're talking about which is why they use a lot of things like operational pillars. So they're all under pillars. And all these pillars are a set of best practices. So here's the interesting part. I'm going to open up a few examples. All the discussion will revolve around this page. So let's go for operational. So a lot of it is precisely this about principles.
You might need to
Increases
increase the font size.
better.
Yeah.
Okay. It's about principles, and then you will talk like, and look at these, right? They do not actually suggest tools until much later, right? Much later. So you would think that it's only at research they tell you that what tools to use. So which I find really interesting. So for example, they tell you how do you build teams. So it's a very end-to-end type of frameworks to operate your cloud infrastructure. In this case, you spend money on AWS, here's how you should do it, right? Which is, I find very interesting. But then I remember that Microsoft used to do something like this in their certification, the MVP program, right? So yeah, so this is something I'm looking at for what reason. I can't say the reason, but I find this really interesting because it's interestingly not just about AWS. Of course, they talk about AWS because that's what they're selling. That's what they're selling. But some of the thing that I suggest is reasonably generic. But so, for example, identify prioritize threat model using a threat model. So this is a very generic type of advice. So let's cover these. You should ask questions as you go. Let me close it. So the first thing is this is a framework about how to run your stuff. It's surprisingly not technical, but the principle will lead to your technical operations. Okay.
Do they have a workbook? Like something to
Short
fill
answer
out?
is yes, they do have
Yeah,
a
because
workbook.
usually this is like what you want to walk through, or like on a 3-day retreat or something. Let's take a look at our AWS, and that's how you would facilitate the session. Like, let's
Correct.
fill this in.
So a lot of it, which this new to me is, I try to find one. I actually seeing that.
But you've
Uh,
seen it, okay.
I seen this in between. It's a set questionnaire, and they don't even ask you what tools you use. Whether you do certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, let's take operational again. Let's go back again. So one of the things that asks you is prepare. How do you have telemetries? Telemetry here. They don't even say logging. They say logging here. They don't even say that telemetry. What telemetry are you talking? They didn't even tell you whether it's about tracing and whatnot. But they just use the word. Then they'll ask you whether you have that. Then if you do not nothing, just say no law. You have it, then you have law. They will like design for operation. What do you mean by that? Do you use version control? Do you test validate change? So they are asking about the question, and the question are directly related to all the pillars of this framework. Okay. So, and in fact, as I say, they have a lot of these are generic, which I find because I expect things like they immediately tell you, I expect like, okay, just use developer tools, just use pipeline. You know what I mean? No, they just said like use whatever, then AWS provide this shit. Okay, cool. And yeah, and actually I find that some of the thing is generic enough to be useful everywhere else. Then Sam tells me, even Google has the same thing. So I do not know anymore. So so the framework covers 6 things. I hate you. I hate all. I hate the what this thing hand over, mouse over. Okay, so there's 6 pillar: operation, security, reliability, performance, cost, and sustainability. Sustainability apparently is new for a reason. Operation is how do you run your infrastructure. So this one are things like how do you handle your organization? Uh, do you talk to the stakeholder in your team, the bosses, the team, and whatnot? Uh, so they have things like operational excellence. Where is so okay? So within this pillar, they have principles like from operation as code. Do you automate your code? Do you do infrastructure like manually like old days? Do you do small changes or you do a big bang deployment, right? Do you constantly refine your operation? Do you ready for failure? And this, for some people, this is weird, right? If you never used cloud before, because uh, traditionally when you deploy a service, that things must work, and you hope you don't have failure. This one is expect failure and learn how to mitigate it. And also, a lot of this is like, how do you do the organization? What do you prepare? Do you design your telemetries? Do you plan to do mitigation risks? So if you're new in the cloud world, this is actually this is what all these things are the reason why this is useful, because uh, with cloud it means that whatever platform you use, it means that you can spin things up easily to replace whatever you need, right? So yeah, so this is one of the pillar, operations. Then understand workload. This okay. Let's ask some question before I jump too fast too far.
No, I don't have any. Yeah, the workbook was the one I'm interested in because
Yeah, I
that's
can't
like
find
it.
it though.
If it's a
Yeah,
guide, no, because it's all well and good if this is there, right? It's good, but
yeah,
if you're going to roll this out to your to everyone in the team in
yep,
a well structured way, then you
yep,
need something like an activity or a guide or a framework to actually introduce this, because this is very textbook like, and it doesn't really work well when introducing change. And so it's
yes,
good that AWS actually provides some of those things, because that's actually how you convince an organization to change stuff.
correct.
Like if it's
I
easy to make the change, then they're more likely
Yep,
to make the change.
correct. And they also provide tools like the lens tools, but I can't show you here because I only have the work one ready. There is actually a very concrete recommendation, but the concrete recommendation have tendency to goes into tools, specific tools. So, for example, for some it actually makes sense. So, for example, for security, you need to use the AWS security. They suggest you use the AWS security tools, and for logging, you should use guard
Kinesis? No, not
duty,
Kinesis. Yeah.
guard duty to process log.
Mm.
And the reason you should use, and what they didn't tell you is the reason why you should use guard duty is because the cost of guard duty process log in cloud trails. And the reason at CloudTrail is because it doesn't make sense on AWS to set up your system syslog servers somewhere and pointing over. It will get complicated. So it's easy to use CloudTrail, but to access CloudTrail, there is cost. To use GuardDuty, it'll be cheaper. You can extract the log out, but it will get expensive because in a way that in theory it work, but the individual cost will be higher because it's a matter of taking the log, store it locally to a Prometheus or something you choose, then you do your own query to do whatever you need, and create alert when you need to, right? But yeah, the workbook. Let me find if there
No, it's
exists.
okay. You don't have to find it now.
Yeah,
I think we
yeah.
should
But it
continue.
exists in a way, lah. It exists in a
Mm-hmm.
way. And focus on things on lens. They actually tell you specific this lah. So either way, I find this interesting in the way that you have this recommendation. Then once you do this, you are asking something. We get some perks from Amazon for doing the right thing, right? So yeah, then
So
it's like
it's
micro.
automatically granted if you
No,
do they have a way to test how is
uh,
that how does that work?
you have auditors. You have auditors. Some is easy to test. So for example, for security pillars, they will ask you to set up logs, right? Then they probably will just check whether you set IM the IM. They just go if they choose to, they can have using the IM API to audit the access, make sure that not everyone have the same superpower access, for example, or then check whether you have CloudTrail enabled. So those are easy to check. Easy to check. Things that is not easy to check is they will actually have somebody to ask you the question. You better ask honestly, and the question is a bit hard to lie lah. So when you say yes, then you probably have to explain what you have done. If you never do it, well, you just can't lie your way out lah. Because a lot of the setup for the thing that they require you to have experience of setting things up. Does it make sense? So
Mm,
it's human audit
Okay.
mostly in short. In short is a lot of human audit,
Mm-hmm.
but it probably easier for them also if you use the specific tools. For example, for IAM, then you have means you have to provide login. It's easier for them to audit you if you use Cognito. That's the login solution by AWS, right? So they're probably easier for you to do all that. But they do have partner tools for that law. So yeah. The thing is, it's actually if you don't do it in the beginning, you don't do the right thing from the beginning, it'll be a lot harder. So, for example, things that are standard, you need to split your infrastructure access by user group. So not everybody can access production. Uh, Developers that can access, uh, most developers that can access dev environment cannot have access to production. Only certain, but those people that can access production can possibly go to development, for example. So if you do it early on, then you'll be fine. But when you build a project early on quickly, you're very likely going to break all sort of rules. Guaranteed happens, right? So, but it's not too hard in a way that if you do the right thing in the early on, you will just pass pretty easily. It's just that as you accumulate your technical debt, you will definitely it'll be harder lah. So I'm going to give you an example. This is reliability tier. So design your workload. So this one is easy if you do your architecture well, like design your microservice well if you choose it. But here's a good one. Monolithic architecture should be avoided, right? Which is why it's not part of the foundation technical review because it's impossible for you to pass this if you start up, because early on, if you do microservice, it'll be a mess. If you manage to do it good, but more often you end up with a monolithic architecture. So which is why this one is not part of the well architect. It's not part of the foundational technical review. FTR, which I call FTR now, FTR only take a subset for this. They only do things here about change management, whether you do Git and all that. If you do it in the beginning, you have logs in the beginning, then you already pass lah. But if you only have CloudWatch but not CloudTrail, for example, then you have to set it up lah. So yeah. Then of course, if you have backup data, again, if you have that in the early on, in other AWS, it's very easy for you to have backup in a way that your instance, you just a switch, you will automatically have your backup. So it's easy to do it, and if you do it in beginning, then you save a lot of time already. So a lot of these are doing the right thing lah. It's about doing the right thing. But if you have again, if you do your technical debt early on, yeah, too bad lah. It just means you have all the work put line up for you lah. I'll be back. I need some water. I talk too much.
What happened to him?
I
Well,
only have this, and it's annoying for people to see me drink
yeah,
water.
Why? I
So
I I drink water
yeah.
while we're alive.
But
I didn't
why
bring
do
my
you have
cup
to?
up. I
Mm,
didn't bring my cup up. So I usually have my cup somewhere. I forget to take it out. So yeah, in short, the main conclusion here is you should read this up anyway. For some idea how to do your architecture and infrastructure nicely. It covers all the right thing. In short, it covers all the right thing, and in a generic way. The thing is, to get the workbook, you maybe need to be a partner. I think
mm,
it's a partner or something, which is why it's not on this page. They only have the book for you. No, my bad. Labs. There's a lab for you. This one. So there's a lab. Yeah, okay, here you are. It's actually at the lab tab. You see
mhm.
that? So
What is the
these are the
Kindle?
work.
It's like a book version.
You can download. You can download the MOBI file format
How much is
to
it?
read.
Because it's on
No, it's free.
Amazon
It's free.
platform.
It's free.
Mm.
Uh,
It's
it's
free,
not
but
for
of
purchase.
course, you're gonna need to use the Amazon services.
Yeah, correct. So, but the lab exists. There you are. That's a lab. What the hell am I thinking? This is the work spot lah. So, for example, they're going to deploy like, yeah. But this is all you. Even FTR, you do not need to do everything. But if you do everything already, then it's probably a good thing for you, right? So
Mhm.
yeah. Oh, it's a
Why
quest.
are they using the quest terminology? What does a quest mean?
Uh, because they actually had a in their course,
Why is it
which
so
is
like sounds like so much like an RPG? You have a quest.
no one of the course in the AWS course. They had a course thing, e-learning thing. Is they gamify the process.
Mm,
So they have a
interesting.
game. Again, I lost the learning platform thing. Here you are. No, it's not here. They have a class somewhere lah. There's a class somewhere that we can. They actually had a gamified solution for that. So yeah, try this lab. But I use a lab. It's very likely it's very likely you are using their tools, and that's fine. Learn some experience first. Learn some experience, and it's a good
Hmm.
thing. It's a good thing to learn. So yeah, but it's a lot of stuff. Just know that it's a lot of stuff. So for example, when you do metrics, you're talking about AWS CloudWatch or CloudTrail metrics, which is not the metric, which is similar to metric you have, but AWS only gives you certain metrics. So, but yeah. So you set up. It's about using their own tools, but it's the right idea in a way that you know that it exists. So the thing that I recommend that once you're familiar with this, understand where how other people do it. So for right. So yeah.
Hmm. Can you apply these things to cloud providers other than AWS, or is it too specific?
Uh,
Like it does
yes
mention
and no.
EC2, for example, right?
Yes and no. If you go through the books, right, the principle is generic. The principle is generic, but the practice itself are all AWS product because you are talking about implementing the solution on AWS without relying third party as much as possible because those third
Mm,
party for this kind of thing will be expensive, right?
yeah.
So if in practice it'll be easier for them to provide at least a free version on within their own infrastructure to train all these practices. Does it make sense?
Hmm.
Yeah. So because a lot of these tools will be expensive for the first place, which is why things like you use web application firewall. Of course, most of us will use Cloudflare for this if we can afford it. But uh, for sake of the training on AWS, they're probably going to use CloudFront instead, right?
Mm.
Because they can give a free quote unquote for you to learn. So yeah, And of course, you're going through the course. As I say, it's like the old certification, vendor certification. When you learn something, it's like your Cisco, right? So you learn about your TCP/IP, but all the practice and exercise will go to the Cisco router. It's the same reason why I do not choose to major in system in networking in UM those days, because I do not want to be tied to one vendor. Because at that time I'm a Linux fanboy, just because. But in a way, it's something that you need to aware of lah. You will go through yes, you may learn the basic, but you will learn the tool when you go to exercise and all that. You are talking, then they were talking about the tools in. So and part of it is because something I said long time. AWS is a form of monopoly in a way that they want to find everything within their ecosystem or within their partner they're willing to work with. But what you get also is you get all the convenience. So yeah. Advanced lab. Anything else?
Yeah,
Any
sounds
other
good.
question?
No.
Yeah. Learn it. It's something you worth doing, and a lot of these courses are free because they really want you to use the tools and all that. So do that. Even though I don't agree with.
What's the Google equivalent, and what is it that you don't agree with?
Google equivalent I do not know, but Sam tells me that it exists for both Azure and Google. But unfortunately, I do not have a chance to look at both of the vendors.
What do you not agree with?
For example, CloudWatch dashboard. I don't agree with using CloudWatch as a dashboard. You can. I prefer Grafana and Prometheus, which is why I had a Prometheus instance. But the catch is, again, my complaint with Monopoly. If you use Grafana, I use Prometheus, and you use things like Yace. Yace is what we call yet another CloudWatch exporter. So you use a thing called a CloudWatch exporter that extract logs from CloudWatch and pump it inside Prometheus databases.
No, Prometheus is not supposed to do that, right? Prometheus is supposed to collect metrics only.
Yeah, so the thing is, the metrics.
If it's log equivalent would be Kibana, right?
Yes, but CloudWatch, they keep metrics as well as log. In this case, the metrics, what they suggested is you build a dashboard on CloudWatch and do the metrics there. CloudWatch provide matrices for your infrastructure, things like your database reads, for RDS.
I would say there are some. I'm not on AWS, but having to self manage Prometheus is that the storage can get pretty big for this metric collection. So
correct.
Yeah, if it's your net ready, I mean, for most that not ready to handle it, it might be
correct
more convenient. I mean, you pay for it lah, but good to just pay for it.
Yes, and it's actually cheap for you to pay for it, but the data visualization is not as capable as Grafana, and Grafana does not plug data directly to.
No, but Grafana is not the data source, right? Can it export to something that Grafana can query?
So, which is why I use the CloudWatch exporter. They export the matrices, the actual the metrics to Prometheus in this case. Then from there we do the analysis. So from that, because with Prometheus you can use the query language to query things as much as possible. I do not manage to do it in CloudWatch. But CloudWatch is making easy. It's a very easy thing. It's the first thing you see lah, and it's very capable. It's just that I know how to build dashboard and this, so I want a bit more lah. So that's why I don't agree with things like CloudWatch, which is why I would prefer to have a third party thing as well lah, which exists thankfully. So yeah, but also you should also, if you never run a cloud before, learn some of this is useful, so that things like the cost model for cloud is very different than your traditional one big so or even VPS, because in AWS you are encouraged to spin things down, right? You are encouraged to tweak your virtual machines. You are welcome to resize your size when you need it. So yeah, you should learn it if you never had to work with cloud before or AWS specifically. So yes. Any other question?
No.
Cool. I'm trying to see whether I can share the thing that I do at work. I never got the opportunity to ask because we had a lot of sensitive thing, like we have customer data, which means that it's not a good idea to share in public. So, but we do have development environment, so maybe we can share that. But we need to see lah.
Yeah.
But yes, all this is the equivalent of Microsoft certified engineer in a way, right? In a way, so you do get your certification, and you take the exam. You can show people that you know all this. Is back to the old way of doing training all over again,
Oh,
except
it's
you can
because it's
DIY
effective,
yourself
right?
here. Yeah, it's effective, and that's the point. You want to prove that you know things. How do you prove that you know things? Here's the right. Well, certification. Why people, despite code school and all that, why people still had still go for a university degree? Because in other organization is you go to university, you're usually good enough for a lot of the tasks. We just hire you from that, right? Even though we know that it's not necessarily true, but that's a shortcut that works for a long time. And
There's no easier
unless
way to prove someone for this.
yeah, it's I would say a shortcut and easier way lah. Even though you would see that, well, just because you go to school doesn't mean you're actually smart, but that's not the point of this story, right? So having a certificate, it's signaling, as Sean
just to
said,
shut
signaling.
yeah, it just shut
It's
people up so you can focus on doing what you need to.
Yeah, well,
correct.
because there is a symmetry of information. You know what you know, but the other party does not know what you know. So you
Yeah,
need, like yeah, what Sean is saying. You need to somehow um, say or not say, because that's not trustworthy. So you have a third party to say that you do know what you are
yep,
saying. You know,
correct.
again,
Which
because information
unfortunately,
asymmetry there.
which is unfortunately the reason why paper mill exists. But let's not go there. Let's not go there. It's called the theory is called information asymmetry. You do not get the same information all the time. It's actually a theory of economics as well, by the
Yeah,
way.
because if you have perfect information, then you have
Mm-hmm.
like there are no negotiations. Like you
Correct.
already know how much the value is, and so there's
Correct.
no room for negotiation since there's no uh, both parties know about the value, and then you agree on the value. Either
Precisely.
this is as much as I want to pay for what I am going to get, and this is as much as I want to receive for what I'm losing. But
Correct.
yeah, because there is information asymmetry, then yeah, that's it. And actually, speaking of that, you were talking about books in the backstage. You want to show a few of those books? You were talking
Oh,
about
I didn't show books.
economics as well, right?
Yes. So I have two books. I'm going to close this window. This
Maybe
one.
make yourself larger as well, so that we can see the
Okay.
books.
Go ahead, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Okay. So I'm going to put it a bit longer. So
Hmm.
it started when I go to a bookshop. Okay.
Like actual
There's a reason
bookshop,
for
not
that.
an ebook store, not
I
Lazada.
go to MPH because when I
Mhm.
pass by, I'm having my dinner because I'm trying to find place before I come home to avoid the jam. Long story short, there's a bookshop, MPH, so I got these two books. This one is from the author of XKCD comic. Uh, so the first book he actually created is called What If, which is a very informational book and also very funny way. It's XKCD style. The second book is called Thing Explainer. It's about explaining things with only 50 or so common English word.
Oh,
So
is
which
this
is
a
why a
Dr.
rocket,
Seuss book? You
no,
know
it's
Dr.
not.
Seuss, right?
Yes. But in this case, now he had a new book, it's called How To. It's actually more of a continuation of What If. So this is about explaining things, but how and more of how to do it.
Yeah.
What if is about scenario.
Sean
So
says
this is
he likes the XKCD one. This is also an XKCD one, right? This is from the same
these
author
are
by
the author. Yeah, Randall Munroe is
Randall
the
Munroe.
author of XKCD. He's the
So this is
creator
the
of the
new one.
comic.
So
Yeah,
this
this
is
is
the
the latest
latest one
book.
that we has.
Correct. I think this book was created last year. Then this one is called Nudge.
Mhm.
Nudge is okay. So let's start a bit. Okay, let's start with what is Nudge first, and why this guy win a Nobel Prize economics for it. A nudge is actually a term that nowadays it's called nudge because you're nudging person to a right behavior. You make it easy for a person to do things so they can nudge the person to do the right thing. So a very good example that is used by, which is the reason why Richard Taylor got a Nobel Prize, is he helped to make it default for the U.S. worker uh, to fund their own pension by making it default that you will contribute to your own pension. It's a KWSP. It's a KWS. ETF. In ETF, by default, you have to give the money either way. In the US, you have option. So to make it people to have saving for their retirement, you make it default. So by making default, you make it easy for people to make decision. Therefore, people will actually save, make it easy to do the thing because the process of undoing the default is a bit more harder, even though it's a one-step thing. So, and as it turns out, uh, uh, so this is the one reason why Richard Taylor got a Nobel Prize in economics 2 years back. Yeah. So yeah, and he actually one of the early pioneer of behavioral economics. In up until the 60s and 70s, maybe, it is believed that with a lot of information, human will make rational decision. Okay, which is which is how economics would work. But as you can see, it's not always this way. This is why people eat snack, smoke cigarettes, and all that, because humans are not always rational. And some of the pioneer for that is actually the author of thinking fast and slow. So the guys are called, God damn it, give me a moment. It's a short one. Slow. Kahneman, Daniel Kahneman. I'm going to share the tab. I'm going to stop sharing. Open new tab. And Okay. Where the hell do I put? Okay. What a mess. Okay. Okay, forget it. I'm just going to share the window. Thinking fast and slow. Then Richard Taylor. Okay, so one at a time. So some of the pioneer of the, so as it turns out, people are thinking that because psychologists knows that humans are not rational. Humans are not rational, right? Humans are not rational. So how do we consolidate the fact that economics mostly works there with trade and all that most of the time, and we are capable of making interesting decisions, which is how we do not destroy ourselves with a nuclear weapon. So Daniel Kahneman with his author, we co-author which passed away a long time back. He actually had doing research on behavior, on decision making, psychology, in a psychology way, right? Entire psychology, which is why you got system to all that. Then I would say it wouldn't be a partner. It's more like then later we have Richard Taylor, which is mostly an economist. But he also asking a question. So if humans have problem making decision, how does it consolidate with the economic system? So he is the one that consolidate the psychological works in psychology by Daniel Kahneman with economics. And this is actually the start of what we call behavioral economics, right? And because how
Which
do you
is a very
consolidate
interesting
topic?
intersection between psychology and statistics and economics.
Correct.
Sorry, psychology and economics. Usually, you
Correct.
have like statistics and all of these things for separated for psychology and economics, but
Yes,
now you
correct.
have behavioral economics.
Correct. Which is why, because of his study, this is why he got the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2017, which is not that long ago. So yeah, so in short, humans are not always rational, but humans always respond to incentives. The core about economics is about incentives, right? Uh, why do you sell things? Because people want things. That's the incentive to one thing. If you have more of one thing, then you have the incentive to one other thing there, which is why you trade. So
That's why
it's
you
all
have to
about
keep buying.
correct, which is why you have the incentive to do things. You need food, therefore you need money. You have the incentive to work to get food, incentives. But there is counter incentive. There is also things like uh, but if you make things hard, then uh, people won't get the right incentive to do things. So, for example, nudge. In US, originally most of the insurance provider or pension provider rather do not make it default for the employees to actually contribute to their own retirement saving because you had all the procedures and all that. So you kind of turn people off. So people are disincentivized to actually contribute to their own retirement saving. So in Nudge, you make it easy. You make it like one check and make it default. Then by default, more people will actually contribute to our saving because there is no incentive to change the default. It's easy and you just do it. You know what I mean? So it's like EPF, same thing. So if and also in coding actually in a way, uh, it's easy for you to write tests. Okay, it used to be testing is manual and painful. Then our tools are make it easier to write our own test tools, and the test tools only get more advanced. So we have more incentives to write correct code to test. Or actually, it's a bit better. Uh, SQL injection. Our tools are only getting easier for us to do the right thing. As a result, we just won't get SQL injection anymore. Those are in the form in a very complicated way. It's about nudging people into the right behavior. So this one is a bit more of the real world than a software world, but yeah, nudge is a thing that people try to do. Make it easy for people to do the right thing for policy reasons. So yeah, which is why I'm interested in this kind of thing. There are things in economics that I don't agree with. You're probably right, but you're also people.
No, it's not always right. It just I would say it's just philosophy.
Yes,
They
The
are
school,
theories that apply to the specific set of assumptions that make up that
yeah,
theory, right?
yeah.
But of
correct,
course, if
Based on
but
the sample,
yeah,
on
but
if it is proven based on the sample that was
correct.
mhm.
in the experiment.
And if
So
and the theory does not prove anything beyond the parameters that it
correct.
it covers. So you can't
Yes.
always say that it's always the truth. It might be true within the
Yeah.
parameters that covers that particular
Correct.
theory.
So, but for a while, it goes back to economics last thing, which is why for a while, economics is about dogma. It's very dogmatic. You put minimum wage, as a result, there'll be inflation. But this year's, or rather last year's, Nobel Prize in economics is about natural experiment in economic theory. So one of the things the author created, which I forget the name, he actually do natural experiment. He didn't do experiment. He just look at the record, because on the bordering state, in one of the state in the U.S., one side of the state actually implement minimum wage, the other don't. The theory is people the money the state the line across the state that don't have minimum wage will the food price will be the same, and the other one with minimum wage will go higher. But based on the record, he found out that he doesn't. So this one, but his real reason why he got a Nobel Prize in economics is his pioneering work in U.S. veterans. So how do you, he proved that using records to prove that military conscription actually have impact to people's economic growth. So those are natural experiment, and it's only reasonably
I would say it's not really an experiment. It's just based on the data
observation.
set.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Observation.
And so so natural experiment is about finding a scenario that hopefully
Which is
mostly applicable.
yeah, which is not easy.
Yes, correct. I'm not saying it's useless. I'm saying that it's magically work, but which is why which is why it's a research. People arguing, people doing this, people verifying and all that, and try to find new cases. But it's because of that he get Nobel Prize, and also because what I don't like about economics is in a way that people use their conclusion in a way that is harmful, in my opinion. So, for example, there's a lot of locals that would think that minimum wage hurt price, but what do you expect people to do? Not,
No,
uh,
it's not. I would say it's not economics to be playing.
yeah, yes, precisely. What do you expect people to do? Not raising, having people to start with shit salary and not able to buy
I would
things, right?
say we have to try lah, even though
Yeah,
we won't know the result anyway.
correct. So either way, economy is one of those things that I'm fascinated with. Maybe I'll share you the books that I like. I don't always agree with it, but the conclusion is always interesting. So yeah, and it's one of those things that you should read as a software engineer to
No,
explore the
no,
outside world.
I study economics formally.
Yeah,
I
just read
didn't
some of the
graduate.
lighter books, lah.
I
Just
just
reading the lighter books, lah. Just I
I
mean,
just didn't graduate.
unless you're really from the economics background, then nothing else. But if you never heard of economics before, read some of the lighter
Yeah,
books. It's really
it's always
interesting.
good to learn about. It will
Correct.
open up some of our biases as well.
Correct.
Not
So with that
everything.
said,
There are no disconnection between different things in the world.
correct. So with that said, thanks for listening. If you do have question about all these AWS certifications and all that, do ask us in comment if when I do read it and maybe give you some answer. Yeah, maybe I help you guys if you do interested. But on the other hand, if you guys actually pass through the experience of doing FTRs and all that, come to me. Come to me. I'm curious as hell. Seriously.
What's FTR again?
It's the AWS FTR is called the
Ah.
Foundational Technical Review.
I
So
thought that
Faster
was
than light.
something similar to
faster than light
to
travel.
NFT.
Oh, okay.
Not NFTs.
No.
New
Okay, with that said,
foundational training or something. Nope. Okay.
yeah.
Bye.
So
See you
with that
next week.
said, bye. Yes. Okay.
How can
Oh,
I